All right, I had news on Jauan Jennings and Brandon Aiyuk money this morning. We're going to get to it, but it has been superseded by even bigger news. Greg Papa is going to be back in the broadcast booth for the 49ers for the rest of this season. Ahead of schedule. He had initially been ruled out for the whole season. He had leukemia, but is obviously winning that battle. And we couldn't be happier that Greg Papa is going to be in that booth with his signature 49ers touchdown call. He knows the game better than anyone in this industry. There's nobody better at this than Greg Papa. And he was sorely missed for the first, 3-4 months of this season. He was back on his radio show for the past couple of months, so it's been great to talk to him. I know that the other day I posted a video. I was on with Greg and the other Greg. I call him Greg Squared, Greg Papa, and Greg Silver. We know that Greg has been doing better and better and better, and we've been waiting to see if he could make it back into the booth to call the rest of this 49ers season on KMBR, and it indeed is going to happen. Now, we speak about early returns to the 49ers in this 2020-25 season. What if both Greg Papa and Fred Warner defy the initial prognosis, defy the initial expectation? What if both of them are back in time for a 49ers Super Bowl run? That would be the only way to describe it. I mean, things are trending up for the 49ers. It's undeniable at this point. They suffered the big, massive slew of injuries early this season. And, part of the terrible news early this season was the news that Greg Papa had cancer. And obviously that meant way more serious than any injury the 49ers have suffered on the football field. But it was all part of this accumulation of terrible news. And now it just seems that we get so much more good news as far as availability goes. And it's not 49ers football without Greg Papa in that booth with this era of 49ers football has been marked by his touchdown calls, by his expertise in that booth. It's been awesome to, again, be able to talk to him on the Mondays after these games or text with him throughout these games. But the fact that we're going to get more Greg Papa to finish out what's turning into I think a magical 49ers run. I mean, the fact that they're 10-4 right now, despite many of the indicators suggesting they should only be about a 500 team, it means that they have found a way to capture and ride some of that clutch magic. And I made the analogy to the 2010 San Francisco Giants yesterday. That's a team that was able to ride the clutch magic all the way to a World Series trophy. And it's not out of the question for the 49ers. In fact, there's a game tomorrow between the Seattle Seahawks and the Rams that if the Seahawks win and they're playing at home, and the Rams probably won't have Devontae Adams, that game tomorrow might give the 49ers a clear path controlling their own destiny to the number 1 seed. And the 49ers can, and I think they might even be favored over Seattle now in Week 18 because the Seahawks have not been playing nearly as well offensively over the course of the past month. The 49ers may have this all in front of them to just hold serve either as favorites or at home or both to go all the way to the Super Bowl and win it. So I'm just glad that whatever happens moving forward, it's obviously an unpredictable league, but I'm happy that whatever happens moving forward, Greg Papa is going to be able to call it in the booth. Guy Haberman did a great job replacing Greg for the majority of the time that Greg was gone. I know they had a rotation of other guys in there too, but Guy, great job in the booth this year, but Greg Papa back for the 49ers in time for this playoff run. Both Guy and Greg actually have been on the channel before. I know that we do the stuff with Greg a lot on KMBR, but I still remember a couple of years ago, we initially had Greg on, and then we had him on in the studio up at the San Francisco Standard. That was a fun discussion last offseason before Brock Purdy signed his contract. Anyway, Greg Papa is back. That is our first piece of Wednesday news. The 49ers are not practicing today because they don't play until Monday night at Indianapolis. So That is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule for the 49ers. Gives us one more day of housekeeping. How about this? I checked in on the Jauan Jennings escalators and incentives. Remember that he was able to add some sweeteners to his deal before the start of this season, and that resolved some of the contractual impasse with Jauan Jennings. It wasn't an entirely new deal. It was a deal with more escalators and incentives. Well, he's already earned a good chunk of them. And the course of these past 3 games is going to give Jauan Jennings a chance to earn even more. So let's take a look at where Jauan Jennings is at right now. He currently has 44 catches for 495 yards on the season. Many of his escalators and incentives are based around a 60 catch, 600 yard baseline. So you just do the math there. Another 16 catches and 105 receiving yards would trigger more of this money. But so far, Jennings, he has a $1.5 million escalator for participating in 50% of the snaps this year. He has way exceeded that this season. I think that if he gets hurt or something this next game and doesn't play for the final couple of games, it might be in a little bit of danger, but likely not. I think he probably has exceeded the 50% snap threshold. So that's a $1.5 million escalator. The other day against the Titans, Jennings caught 2 touchdowns. You see the first of the 2 touchdowns pictured on the screen right now. So those were his 6th and 7th touchdown catches of the year. There's a $667,000 escalator for 6 touchdown catches. Jauan Jennings has achieved that. And then there's a $1.6 million incentive for at least 35 offensive snaps in 10 different games. Jennings has played in 12 games so far, so he has earned that $1.6 million incentive, but that can sweeten up to $2.4 million if he plays in at least 35 offensive snaps in 15 games. So he's at 12 right now. The 49ers have 3 to go. So if Jennings goes out there and plays in at least 35 snaps in each of the 49ers' last 3 games, and in every game this year that he's been active, he's been over 35 snaps. So this is likely, I think, to be earned at this point. But if he does that, then the incentive that says $1.6 million right here, I'm circling it with my cursor, will turn into $2.4 million. So he can earn $800,000 more. He can trigger an additional $667,000 escalator with those 16 more catches to get him up to 60 on the year. And he can trigger an additional $667,000 escalator with those 105 more yards to get him to 600 on the year. And I just mentioned the 800,000 that would be added to the total if he's in 35 offensive snaps over the past 3 games. So Jennings has already earned $3.8 million on top of his existing contract, that total, based on what already has a check mark by it. But he can earn up to $5.9 million depending on what happens over the next 3 weeks. So Jennings essentially has $2.1 million on the line of escalator / incentive money that can be earned over the final 3 weeks of this season. And 16 catches over 3 games, that's just over 5 catches a game. 105 receiving yards over 3 games, that's what, 35 receiving yards per game. These are all attainable incentives. So I think it's likely that Jennings will hit that $5.9 million mark, and it is well deserved. Now, the 49ers had earmarked this money for Jennings to earn, even with Brandon Aiyuk still on the books. But one of the main downstream effects of this crazy, sad, indescribable, mysterious falling out of Brandon Aiyuk is that the 49ers are going to be able to get money back. They're almost certainly not going to pay out 2026, 2027, and 2028. Those years total about $85 million on Brandon Aiyuk's contract. So that frees up a ton of money. But they just moved him to the left squad list, and that's going to allow the 49ers to try to recoup significant amounts of money from this 2025 season that's already been paid to Brandon Aiyuk. And I would estimate that in totality, the 49ers will end up freeing up about $90 million or even more that had originally been earmarked for Brandon Aiyuk. And remember that cap space, salary cap space, the unused portion of it carries over from season to season. So it's all coming from one large pool, one large reservoir. It's not like, okay, you just look at this year and then you reset for next year. Whatever you don't use this year is going to be tacked on to the 2026 spending limit. 2026 is going to move to 2027. So you have to look at this all in that one big clump. And I think that there's a good chance that Jauan Jennings is offered a deal sooner rather than later that prolongs his contract with the 49ers into 2026 and beyond. Now, Jauan decided not to take a deal before the start of this season. It might have been worth around $12 million, $13 million a year. He decided to bet on himself, decided to see if he could get some incentives added to his deal. And he did. And he's on track to earn those incentives, as you can see right here. Since he did bet on himself a few months ago, it probably is going to be worth it for Jauan Jennings to try to test the market in free agency in March, because that's when he can actually truly drive a price up from the 49ers. Even if he wants to stay in San Francisco, he has every right not to sign anything on the dotted line. And the 49ers probably won't like me saying this, but he has the right not to sign anything on the dotted line and wait until other teams can bid for his services in March. And then he could turn to the 49ers and say, well, Jacksonville wants to pay me this much. You guys are going to have to match it. And Jauan has done everything the right way ever since he stepped onto the 49ers practice field back in 2020. Earned a spot in 2021, was the number 3 wide receiver for the 49ers for a few years there, and then really blossomed last year when Brandon Aiyuk was not available for much of the season. You could even make the argument that the 49ers paid the wrong guy in 2024. Well, now with some of that future money opened up, because that cap space, the unused cap space, does carry over from season to season, the 49ers can probably, I don't want to say right or wrong from the past, because Jennings is playing he is playing the X, but they were looking at this completely differently, because the reality was completely different in 2024 when the deal was signed. But they can definitely recalibrate how that money is spent and give it to somebody who's been a reliable fixture for this team, even through injury, even through 5 broken ribs this year. And I know that we talk about the fact that Jauan Jennings gets under opponents' skin so much. That's all the more reason to re-sign him. If he's figuring out stuff to say to grown men in the NFL that is bothering them that much, I, as a general manager, want this guy on my team indefinitely. Because, I mean, this is a game where keeping your emotions in check is a massive, massive benefit. Losing your cool is hugely punitive. And if you have a guy that can make opponents lose their cool at the rate that Jauan Jennings is able to do it, I think he's a genius. And I think that's worth its weight in gold. I go all the way back to 2021 when the 49ers were playing Jacksonville, and Rayshawn Jenkins just couldn't help himself, and he decided to punch Jauan Jennings in the head, but Jennings had a helmet on, so Rayshawn Jenkins was only risking breaking his own hand. I mean, it was one of the most idiotic things that you'd ever see. Hey, this is a grown man making millions of dollars in Rayshawn Jenkins, who got so upset that he risked the health of his hand to try to hit Jauan Jennings because of something that Jauan must have said to him on the field, or probably just because of the way that Jauan blocks on the field, how physically he plays. Like, whatever the reason for the reaction, it's good for the 49ers because it's getting under opponents' skin. And I think that the primary reason for these reactions that Jauan Jennings is getting is because he just blocks so damn hard down the field. And I don't think the defenders are used to it. And I think that it's a tone setter for San Francisco. And, I could share another stat with you right here. This so far this year has not been good for the 49ers, but I think it's about to get a lot better. And I think a lot of it was no Brandon Aiyuk, who was also a really good blocker downfield when he was playing for the 49ers. But I think that Jauan Jennings and the 5 fractured ribs did not help the 49ers perimeter blocking game for several weeks of this season. This is a look at explosive play rate on offense. In the past, especially in 2023, when the 49ers had that complete juggernaut of a unit, they were in the upper right. You got the explosive run rate on the x-axis. You've got the explosive pass rate on the y-axis. As you can see, they're not rushing explosively at all. In fact, I got a crazy stat for you. The 26-yard run that Brock Purdy delivered, where he, I guess you could say, taunted Cody Barton and immediately apologized with the little fake pitch there at the end, the flip of the ball right into Barton's face. That was the 49ers' longest run of the season. They have 2 runs of 20 or more yards. One is Christian McCaffrey, barely eked out 20 yards at Arizona a few weeks ago. And the second is Brock Purdy on that run, the famous run that we're talking about, for 26 yards. So the explosive rushing rate for the 49ers right here, the worst in the league. Maybe New Orleans is slightly worse than them, but the 49ers are bottom 2, which is absolutely crazy to envision because Christian McCaffrey hasn't slowed down one bit. You see McCaffrey producing it on other facets of the game, and he still has every single bit of the juice that he had in 2023. It is the downfield blocking that has been different for the 49ers this year. Of course, not having Purdy for a lot of the season has negatively impacted this, but the perimeter wide receiver extra effort that the 49ers consistently got over the course of the Kyle Shanahan era up to this season, maybe even especially through 2023. Last year was a mess for many reasons, but that is what differentiated the 49ers. And we could talk more about Brandon Aiyuk and how good he was for this football team and how hard it is to make up for some of that slack. You go back to the Pittsburgh game, the season opener in 2023. Christian McCaffrey had that 65-yard touchdown run at the start of the second half where Aiyuk blocked 2 guys. I mean, it was the degree of difficulty was off the charts for Brandon Aiyuk as far as needing to block the defensive end and then take out the safety all within a 4-second stretch. It was crazy. And then you had a gadget receiver. That was Ray McCloud. He's not on the team anymore. But you had a gadget receiver come from the other side of the field on a hypotenuse, sprint a good, probably 80 yards to clear the way for Christian McCaffrey to enter the end zone. I mean, blocking efforts like that are what enabled McCaffrey to go off the charts in terms of explosive runs in 2023. And I think the fact that there's no Aiyuk, obviously, anymore, the fact that Jennings was hurt for much of this season, the fact that Pearsall has been hurt for much of this season, I just don't think that the 49ers have been as good blocking on the perimeter. I mean, for the run game, too, the big variable has been George Kittle. The run game ranked number 27 in the league, weeks 1 to 7 when Kittle was hurt. Ever since Kittle has returned, the run game is back to being a top 10 unit. But what they still aren't doing is generating the explosives at a rate that matches or at least approaches what they were doing in the past. And that is the next frontier for this 49ers offense. And I think Jauan Jennings, hungry, motivated, close to earning another $2.1 million over the final 3 games of this season. I think he's going to try his darndest to get the 49ers further to the right on this explosive rush rate. And I do think that will trend in the right direction for this offense, but it just isn't something that is going to end up at the same level as it was in 2023. It is the last variable that the 49ers have to tick off to be a consistently elite offense moving all the way potentially to the Super Bowl this year. Here's another really awesome stat. Brock Purdy doesn't qualify for the ESPN QBR leaderboard yet, but he's at 72.9. His QBR was in the 73s, the 73 point something in 2023 when it led the league. Purdy probably will begin to qualify after this game. If not, then after the next game against the Bears for sure. But if he maintains the QBR that he currently has right now, Brock Purdy will be number 2 behind only Jordan Love of all quarterbacks in the NFL in QBR. I already showed you that he's number 1 in success rate, top 5 in EPA per play, number 2 right now, but without enough snaps to qualify for the leaderboard in QBR. And if Jordan Love falters a little bit, Jordan Love can drop down from 73 to 72 or 71. Purdy will be the number 1 quarterback in the entire NFL when it comes to QBR. and he will have reached that spot without an explosive run game. So the only way for the 49ers right now offensively is up. Now, we can have as many conversations as we want about the defense, and I know that it's a potential question spot for the 49ers. I know they didn't defend the run well against Tennessee. I know that Nick Bosa is out. I know Fred Warner's out, but I also know that we've been talking about the potential of a Fred Warner return. And I think they could use Kendricks. I think they could use Sam Okawanu. I think they could use Tatum Bethune. They can continue to use a ball-hogging offense to keep that defense off the field. My analogy is the one that I brought up yesterday, the 2010 San Francisco Giants. The pitching staff of that Giants team was epically good. That is tantamount to the 49ers offense this year. That's going to have to be their dominant pitching staff. But it was the lineup of those Giants that was hit or miss. And it took an unsung hero in the postseason, in Cody Ross. Do you guys remember Cody Ross? Just on fire. I mean, this was a live look in at Cody Ross over the course of the 2010 postseason. First, the Giants, they took out the Padres, right, to win the NL West. And then they took out the Atlanta Braves to win the NLDS. And then the Philadelphia Phillies were heavily favored over the Giants, and they won in 6 games. They won on the road in Philadelphia, game 6, and then they took out the Texas Rangers in the World Series. I think it only took them 5 games to beat the Rangers. But Cody Ross was absolutely on fire throughout that postseason, and he was not a guy that you would expect to carry a team to a World Series offensively. I think the 49ers are going to need that kind of performance from guys on their defense over the course of this postseason. They're going to have to truly get hot at the right time. The pieces are going to have to magically fit together in a way that it doesn't have to be overpowering, but it has to be as timely as some of those Cody Ross hits were in 2010 for the Giants. That's the kind of magic that the 49ers are going to need over the course of this postseason. So maybe the base hit turns into an interception, right? For Cody Ross, there were hits and home runs and RBIs. For the 49ers, it's probably as simple as opportunism on defense. If Jair Brown is in position to make a pick, he needs to catch it. If Malik Mustafa is in position to make 2 picks, he needs to log both interceptions. That didn't happen against the Titans. They dropped 3 interceptions. That kind of stuff, that they don't have that kind of margin for error against good teams on defense. And then the more the 49ers can return in the front 7, so, Fred Warner's return would obviously be epically awesome for the 49ers. But if you could get Sam Okawanu back, if you could get Yetur Gross-Matos back, I mean, that could happen as soon as this week as far as setting an edge and then being able to rush against the inside. The more competent, capable bodies you have in the inside, the better shot you have to be sturdy 4 quarters against the run. So you don't have these little lapses like they did for the drive in Cleveland or for the whole game, really, against the Tennessee Titans. And you can prop up that top 10 rushing defense rank. I mean, it's something that's improved immensely this season, but still is shoddy at times, and they've dealt with so many injuries. Find enough of this defensive magic to make this unit mediocre, and then let the offense and the special teams sing. And that's the ace in the hole. I don't know how you analogize special teams to the 2010 Giants. The Giants had the pitching staff, and they had, maybe it's the bullpen. Maybe special teams is the bullpen. Yeah, I guess that's good as we can get with an analogy. But the 49ers have the top special teams unit in football. I measure it since week 1, since the end of week 1, because they cut Jake Moody after that. They brought in Eddie Pinheiro. He has the longest field goal making streak of any kicker in football this year. He's made 25 in a row. It seems to me that the 49ers may have some mojo on their side there too, because not only has Pinheiro missed, but from extra points, so it doesn't count against the field goal misses, but he also missed the field goal the other day. That was his second missed field goal this year that has been nullified by a penalty on the opposing team. So it just seems to me that the special teams gods may be smiling at the 49ers in ways that they haven't smiled on them before. And we can call special teams the bullpen. But the formula is clearly there. And a big part of that formula, Greg Papa. He needs to call these touchdowns. He needs to call these interceptions. He needs to call these Eddie Pinheiro field goals. We are very, very happy that Greg Papa is back. KMBR announced it. I immediately texted Greg. He immediately confirmed it. Greg's response, I just said he's back in all caps, and Within 5 seconds, Greg responded LFG with a couple exclamation marks. So that is confirmation from Greg Papa that he is going to be back in the booth for the 49ers moving forward. Awesome, awesome stuff. Mike is saying something to me on the chat. The 49ers did extend Jennings in 2024. Yes, technically they did, but they gave him a smaller contract. They did not give Jennings the $20+ million deal. And I'm not saying that that's what his market value is. I'm saying that they gave an A-list contract to Brandon Aiyuk for $30 million annually, and they gave a smaller deal worth about, what was it, $6 million annually to Jauan Jennings. And they gave that deal a little bit more upward mobility this offseason with the sweetener after Jauan Jennings, I think, rightfully wanted some more money following 2024. I mean, the reality completely changed, right? Everything turned on its head after Brandon Aiyuk signed his contract. Aiyuk, I can't say that he started behaving irrationally because he was behaving irrationally before he signed the deal. And that's the mistake that the 49ers made here, is that they miscalculated that Brandon Aiyuk would return to normal after signing the contract. He never returned to normal. And it very quickly became apparent over the course of that 2024 season that Jauan Jennings was their more reliable receiver. He learned how to play that X position. He played it well. And I don't think that Jennings has ever been a true one-for-one replacement for Brandon Aiyuk at the X position. But I do think that the financial structure was totally misaligned as that new reality set into place. So, Jennings might not be a $30 million guy, but he's definitely more than a $6 or $7 million guy. I think he's probably more than a $15 million guy. And I think now the 49ers would be willing and able to pay that much because of the money that is freed up with Brandon Aiyuk. I also think the 49ers will probably go to the draft to pick at least one receiver. And I do realize that this team still ranks in the 20s in average separation at the time of catch or in completion. But a lot of that, you trace that back to the absence of Aiyuk, of course. But also you look at the fact that Jennings and Ricky Pearsall have both been hurt for large stretches of this 2025 season. We saw the proper way to pick up the slack for not having Brandon Aiyuk in that game against Tennessee. Ricky went off. Jauan Jennings went off, especially in the red zone. Those two guys, they may not be as good as prime Brandon Aiyuk in 2023, but when they combine forces the way they did on Sunday, and they deliver in their very specific niches, like Jennings, great red zone guy, good separator in tight spaces, big body, uses that body to shield defenders away, and has a good rapport with Brock Purdy. And then Ricky Pearsall, just a drop-dead good separator, very talented player, all parts of the field, but especially in between the 20s. When they complement each other in that way, they can actually approximate the production of Brandon Aiyuk. And they're both good blockers. Jennings especially is a really good blocker downfield, but they can pick up the slack in an effective way. And that's what the 49ers were able to do on Sunday. All right, I am ready to answer some of your questions. I'm sure that we have a little bit more to show you. I always have more to show you guys. We always have some cool graphics to go. I know that we went through the explosive play rates. Oh, I put this up the other day. This is really, really funny. Let me get this up on the screen for you guys, because I was talking about Yak and George Kittle. This is a good stat. George Kittle has posted his best Yak performance in quite some time. 89% of George Kittle's receiving yards, 88 receiving yards on Sunday, came after the catch. And obviously that's the forte of George Kittle. But the 49ers Yak had not been as great because of the lack of spacing that the 49ers were getting downfield. That goes back to Aiyuk and the receiver room. Well, it was back thanks to what Jennings and Pearsall were able to do from a spacing standpoint the other day. So the Yak attack, that's George Kittle. This is the famous moment in 2019 against the Saints at the Superdome. I noticed somebody in the background, though. Number 6, over here on the right, that is Thomas Morstead, 49ers punter, longtime Saints punter. I'm going to have to ask Thomas about that this week because that game was so intense. I did not know that players were standing on top of the bench to get a better view. But the punter, and you can't see his head, but you can see the number 6. I know that he wears the number 7 for the 49ers right now. But Thomas Morstead got a very, very good view of George Kittle rumbling down the field. Now, what's even wilder is that here, and I'm circling Morstead with my cursor just in case you guys don't know where to look. What's even wilder is that this was already 10 years into Morstead's career. And this was 6 years ago, right? This is 2019 at the Superdome. Drew Brees against Jimmy Garoppolo. This is a 4th and 2. Garoppolo found Kittle, and then Kittle dragged 3 Saints defenders a good 15 or 20 yards to set up Robbie Gould's game-winning field goal. 49ers won this game 48-46. Really, really good memories from that magical 2019 season. Greg Papa's first year on the call, by the way. Took over in 2019. But Thomas Morstead was also on the opposing sideline at Candlestick Park in 2011 when the 49ers beat the Saints with Alex Smith and the catch 3 to Vernon Davis. Morstead's first year in the league with the Saints was 2009. So Morstead played 11 seasons, at least 11, 2009 to 2020, I believe, with Drew Brees. They had 8 games with no punts. And now he just had his first game with no punts with Brock Purdy. And Drew Brees was actually the announcer of the game on Fox. He was calling the game. I think it was Adam Amin and Drew Brees were the 2 guys up in the Fox booth. So Thomas Morstead has had a wild football journey, and I think I need to talk to this guy a little bit more because the stories that we talked about the 2011 game at Candlestick between the Saints and the 49ers, but it's almost turned into a Where's Waldo-like situation. Mike, can you send me the Super Bowl onside kick picture of Thomas Morstead? Because Mike sent me this picture the other day, and we were starting to look up old photos of where this guy has appeared. And, so there's number 6 on the Saints, Morstead. Where's Waldo at George Kittle's famous Rumble? I believe at the same site of WrestleMania that year. I think that WrestleMania was at the New Orleans Superdome, Louisiana Superdome. So George Kittle did his own WrestleMania thing. Now, this right here, this is one of the most famous moments in Super Bowl special teams history. And Thomas Morstead was a very, very big part of it when the Saints played the Indianapolis Colts. Look at that. Thomas Morstead. Skinnier guy back then. He's definitely added some muscle over time. But now he is with the 49ers. This was Morstead's rookie season, I believe, because the Saints-Colts Super Bowl was, 2010. So that's Thomas Morstead as a rookie because he was a rookie in 2009 with the Saints. They beat the Colts 31-17. One of the big calls was the onside kick by Sean Payton. So you could see Thomas Morstead very excited that he executed that onside kick well. And then a good 10 years later, he's with the Saints facing the 49ers. Drew Brees still playing. And that was the Jimmy Garoppolo out-dueling of Drew Brees with the help of George Kittle, 48-46. Anyway, Yak may be back for the 49ers. And if it is, this offense is about to enter another stratosphere. I think that, they've averaged 31 points a game ever since Brock Purdy returned. They haven't played the best defenses except for Cleveland. That's a big one that I think they broke Cleveland's defense. The Browns have not been playing nearly as well since that game. I think in those conditions with Myles Garrett, chasing the sack record, with the wind coming off of Lake Erie, with Brock Purdy coming off of a tougher game against the Carolina Panthers, that was a statement for the 49ers offense. Moving forward, they get to play an average Colts defense. I think DeForest Buckner is going to be back, by the way, old friend for the 49ers. Then they play a very opportunistic Chicago Bears defense. The Bears rank number one with 30 takeaways this year. So you're going to have to take care of the ball against the Bears. But I don't think it's a great defense. I think it's very opportunistic. I think, Jalen Johnson out of Fresno, the cornerback, Central High School, Fresno, Jalen Johnson is he'll make some of the best interceptions that you'll ever see. He's very, very skilled around the football. You got to look out for him. But I think the 49ers will be able to run the ball against Chicago. And I think that Brock Purdy has been playing so well within himself. The risk-reward calculator for Brock Purdy has truly been fantastic over the course of the past 2 weeks. I think the 49ers are very, very confident every single time he breaks the huddle, lines up either under center or back in the gun. And then finally, the ultimate test of this regular season is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. And that final game, that Week 18 game on January 4th, we can talk all we want about the Seattle defense languishing over the course of the Seattle offense languishing over the course of the past 5 weeks or so. And I want to open that up. I want to see Seattle ever since Week 10 had not been nearly as good offensively. I'm going to go to the team tier chart and set this to weeks 10 to 18 just to see where they've been exactly offensively. But regardless of how much they've struggled offensively since week 10, despite the very hot start, the Seahawks are still playing very, very good defense. So I'm opening this up right now. Just give me a second. We're going to get this up on the screen. Now, week 10 includes the 49ers game against the Rams, which was obviously a rout in favor of the Rams. All right, we got it now. And I think it's probably fair to include this in any predictive look forward, because the 49ers are going to have to play the Rams in some likelihood, or a very tough team in the playoffs. If they want to reach the Super Bowl, it's not just going to be the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Tennessee Titans. It's going to be teams that are in the upper right here. So we're including the Rams in this look since week 10. Seattle's offense has been below average, as you can see here. And this was an upper right offense at the start of the year. Like Seattle, if they would have been able to carry the early season offensive performance into the back half of this season, they would be unquestionably, I think, the best team in football, because they'd be out here. They wouldn't even have to be as good as the Rams offensively to be because they also have a very good special teams unit. It's the Seahawks and the 49ers 1-2 in special teams, but the offense for the Seahawks has languished. That's why the Rams are slight favorites on Thursday. Now, no Devontae Adams, which is a very real possibility for the Rams, I think essentially evens that out, or may even give an advantage to Seattle since the Seahawks are at home. But look where the 49ers have been, and this includes that Rams game with Mac Jones. The offense has been near the top of the league, obviously a step behind the Rams. The defense slightly below average. The question then is, what can the 49ers deliver defensively? How much can they scrounge together defensively? Can they bump the defense up above average, or just keep it at average while the offense gets a little bit better? Can you be in the same territory as the Rams and then give yourself a fighter's chance to knock them off in a one-game scenario, or earn the 1 seed so that the Rams have a tougher path through the playoffs, a much tougher path through the playoffs than you, and you beat them that way, and you get to the Super Bowl that way? It's not always the best team that wins it all. I would say that the Rams are the best offense-defense combination in the league right now. That's what the team tier chart suggests. But the 49ers in 2023 were off the charts. They were over here where my cursor is moving. And they didn't win the Super Bowl in large part because their special teams wasn't good enough. And one issue with the Rams this year has been the special teams unit. They haven't been great. And we saw it rear its ugly head in week 5 against the 49ers. So buckle up. This is about to get a lot of fun. We're happy that Greg is going to be back on the call to help document all of this moving forward. And there's money on the line too. I go through some of the Jauan Jennings incentives. And those of you who are just joining, you could see those incentives right here. Remember that Kendrick Bourne can earn $500,000 with just 1 receiving yard on Monday at Indianapolis. So $2.1 million still on the table, on the line for Jauan Jennings over the course of the final 3 games of this season. And $500,000 on the line. Just one receiving yard for Kendrick Bourne, who could be a big part of what the 49ers are trying to do, especially if Ricky Pearsall is not available for San Francisco. We don't expect Ricky to practice this week. Oh, good. We got a good photo of Greg Papa. I'm going to have to get this up on the screen. I believe this is from the Super Bowl. Yeah, this is from the Super Bowl in 2023. But the 49ers also did release a cool video, and we're going to play that from, I think it's a mic'd up video from the game. Mike just sent it to me, so why don't we watch it right now? I'll just cut out the mute. Oh, it's a slow-mo. Great. It's a slow-mo of Brock Purdy, so we can talk about this. We could see the background as Purdy is running. Strength coach going wild. Kyle Juszczyk watching intently. There's Mick Lombardi. I mean, now Purdy's starting to wow people, and now he's about to fake the pitch into Cody Barton's face. He's going to get some laughs on the sideline as well. That's Brant Boyer with the headset on. Oh, that's the good stuff right there. That is the good stuff. On the 49ers' longest run of the season. 26 yards. One of the wildest stats. Oh, my God. Jason Pinnock is going crazy. We're going to rewind that a little bit. Look at Pinnock, number 25, jumping up and down in the background. Kyle Shanahan is like, whatever. Yeah, it's been almost – it's funny because – Shanahan had, you could tell that he wasn't all that thrilled with the jump throw. They had a mic'd up episode with the jump throw, and Kyle, Mike, if you have that, we could maybe play it. But Kyle's like, jump throw, Michael Jordan, good job. It wasn't. He seemed a little annoyed that Purdy put that jump throw on there. But there's this begrudging admission from Kyle Shanahan that he has one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's really funny to see on that mic'd up video. Maybe we'll do a separate video on it if Mike doesn't have it right now. Oh, he does. He has it. Play the audio on this one, Mike says. Here we go. Yeah, he said something about a jump throw. He might have thrown an F-bomb in there. Kyle obviously wasn't happy. Kyle likes things to be a little bit more choreographed. But the magic of Brock Purdy is that he could make plays outside the box at a league-leading rate. Like, this is the most productive, efficient quarterback in the NFL. You know, I get a little annoyed when people are like, oh, yeah, he's a top 10 quarterback, top 10. In what world is 10 the boundary that you're using? The guy's been number one across every single efficiency stat since he joined the league in 2022. This is obviously one of the handful of best quarterbacks in the league. And I think that Kyle Shanahan acknowledges that, but the inner wiring of Kyle Shanahan to have everything scripted, everything robotically scripted for the quarterback, sometimes gets a little upset by things like the jump throw. Let's have a listen in here to Kyle Shanahan.
Your jump throw! Kittle's got it!
Jump pass again. Michael Jordan jump pass.
One more time.
Jump pass again. Michael Jordan jump pass.
The Michael Jordan jump pass. That was Guy Haberman on the call, by the way. But the Michael Jordan jump pass with the audio cutting out intermittently there a couple times, which leads me to believe that Kyle Shanahan was maybe dropping an F-bomb about it. I can neither confirm nor deny. Maybe we can give Kyle Shanahan a chance to confirm or deny. But anyway, he wasn't 100% thrilled, but I think that he called him Michael Jordan. They call it Michael Jordan whenever Brock Purdy does that, and it's part of the magic. It's part of the reason why he's number one in the NFL in success rate, number two in QBR. I said this during the Titans game. There's a chance that Brock Purdy finishes number one across all the quarterback stats to end the season. He's not going to be the MVP this year. He missed too much time, but he might be the most valuable player in this league this year. I mean, not the award. I'm just saying what you've seen the 49ers get from Brock Purdy after he's returned, 30-plus points per game. If he can start doing this down the stretch against some of the better defenses into the postseason, we've already seen him be a postseason difference maker in 2023 with the way that he played down the stretch against the Packers and, of course, bringing the 49ers back from 17 points against the Lions. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I mean, none of these numbers lie. And the eye test doesn't lie either. And the people that know what they're watching, I think, will recognize that Brock Purdy is playing at an elite level. All right, the good news is that Greg Papa is back. Go through Jauan Jennings contract stuff, and he's earning some of that Brandon Aiyuk, former Brandon Aiyuk money. It's all coming from the big same pool. We're going to talk to you a little bit later today. Everybody, thanks for watching.